meeting asks a difficult question about a strategy or a new process, nobody in the room actually knows the answer. Instead of admitting that, everyone engages in a beautiful, coordinated pantomime of nodding thoughtfully and gesturing vaguely. You stare at your screen for 40 minutes, writing a single work email, carefully editing your sentences so you sound perfectly in control of a process you are actively figuring out as you type. We spend a huge portion of our days putting on a show of competence, but looking closely at why we do this reveals something surprising. People aren't trying to deceive their coworkers or consciously run a scam. Presenting as confident when we feel completely unsure is an automatic survival mechanism. We are managing how others perceive us in environments that heavily reward certainty. If you view this constant posturing as an adaptation to the modern workplace, it stops looking like a personal flaw. It is a highly logical response to the ecosystem we live in. In 1978, psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes studied a group of highly credentialed, accomplished women. They found a recurring pattern. A massive percentage of these individuals privately believed they had somehow fooled everyone around them, a phenomenon now widely documented as Imposter Syndrome. When people feel a secret sense of inadequacy, they rarely respond by shrinking down. To protect themselves, they project even more certainty. The private fear of incompetence directly creates the outward performance of expertise. This chart visualizes the Dunning-Kruger Effect by mapping outward confidence against measurable competence. People with low ability at a task overestimate their competence. Conversely, individuals with high ability predictably underestimate theirs, incorrectly assuming that if a task is easy for them, it's easy for everyone. Psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger formally identified this dynamic during a series of rigorous studies at Cornell University in the late 1990s. Put all these people in a room together, and you get a predictable result. The individuals who have thought about a problem the least make the most noise, while the people who understand the complexities sit quietly, acutely aware of exactly what they still don't know. Managing our social impressions is an ancient human behavior. Sociologist Erving Goffman wrote extensively in the 1950s about how all social interaction is a performance. But modern life has introduced 3 distinct pressures that severely amplify this instinct. The first pressure is visibility. Social media platforms place our thoughts in front of thousands of strangers permanently. Instead of a passing conversation that fades away, you are always on a stage, creating intense pressure to have a curated, confident opinion on everything. The second pressure is the pace of information. There is simply more data, new terminology, and fresh research to track than any human mind can process. The half-life of professional expertise shrinks every year. In the mid-20th century, a physician could realistically keep up with the major developments in their specific field. Today, a doctor faces a volume of new medical research that is mathematically impossible to read. The third pressure is how we treat uncertainty. Over the last few decades, algorithms and professional cultures began rewarding decisive, immediate takes. Admitting that you need more time to research a topic before having an opinion became a heavily punishable liability. The professional expectation of complete mastery has not adjusted to match the reality of information overload. To survive the growing gap between what you are expected to know and what you actually know, you fill the empty space with performance. Maintaining this facade requires massive amounts of energy. When you constantly monitor your word choices to sound authoritative and adjust your posture to appear in control, you consume the precise cognitive resources you need to actually think critically. When you gather a team of people all expending their energy on looking capable, nobody wants to be the first to express a doubt. The group loses the early warning signals that might course-correct a failing strategy before it becomes expensive. Teams can only access their collective intelligence when they have psychological safety. Psychological safety is a shared belief held by members of a team that it is acceptable to take risks, express concerns, and admit mistakes without fear of negative consequences. Organizational psychologist Amy Edmondson has spent decades researching this dynamic at Harvard Business School, finding that teams with high safety consistently outperform those without it. If the environment forces everyone to hide their uncertainty, the actual intelligence of the group remains trapped behind a wall of individual performance anxiety. Scale this behavior up to the civilizational level, and you see the entire Dunning-Kruger dynamic playing out in real time. We make massive collective decisions regarding public health, scientific funding, and political policy in an environment where the loudest voices are the least informed. Researchers call this epistemic cowardice. Epistemic cowardice is the conscious choice to remain deliberately vague or hide your true assessment of a situation, simply because the social cost of stating it clearly feels too high. The widespread habit of faking knowledge does not mean society is full of deceitful people. It means we have built incentive structures that actively punish honesty and reward unearned confidence. The people who are genuinely comfortable saying, "I don't know," provide a completely honest report on their current state of knowledge. Because they are willing to admit when they lack an answer, you can actually believe them when they claim to have one. Competence and the performance of competence are two different things. In a culture suffocating on loud, performed certainty, true intelligence looks like the quiet courage to simply admit what you do not know.